Hi, everyone. Welcome to the MomafeyHT Live Conversations. And I am Mama Faye. And today we're going to continue our discussion and our live conversation about the two episodes that I put out this week. And the first one is the after the breaking point, after the bill, here's how you restructure your life. And that's coming from the Understanding Cycles by Mama Faye podcast. And that one just dropped today. It always comes out on Thursdays. And then also, we're going to talk about becoming a real family, holding what's holding you together and what is tearing you apart. So first, we're going to talk about the breaking point. Now, this series is almost over, but it is very exciting because uh, if you've been following this particular series, it's called "Winning Under Attack," and we talked about how people are feeling like they're being attacked, and it's not just naturally somebody attacking you, but it also is when you feel like life is attacking you. So we kind of go into that, the details about that. And now we're at the point where in the book of Nehemiah, the people had them built the walls, built their homes, built their temples. But what a lot of us don't understand is that once we've built things and we've built our life, many of us have built our careers. A lot of times we're like, Shh, that's it. It's over. I'm good. I'm going to live good, happy thereafter. But what happens is we not only have to do some things now that we have built, because what can happen is you can end up losing the things that you built, and then now you have to now find yourself trying to rebuild it again. And so this was one of the things that Nehemiah was trying to prevent. So in this particular podcast episode, we go into about how once you built the thing and you completed it, now you have to restructure your life. And a lot of us are at that point in our lives where we're finding ourselves having to do some restructuring, because of what is going on in the economy, what's going on in the world. Now we're seeing that a lot of the prices of gas and groceries and all of these are going up. And for some people, because you've been in a particular career for 25 years, for some people 10 years, even 5 years, and you're finding yourself being phased out and now having to rebuild all over again, and it can feel very overwhelming. But guess what? I got you. I'm telling you the keys to rebuilding your life. And so I want you to listen to that podcast, and it talks about that rebuilding, and it's so important. I'm going to give you a couple of the keys today just to get you to understand some of the things that you're going to hear about. And one of the three things that I'm going to talk about today on that particular subject is you have to establish some new rules for your rules of engagement. Because what will happen is if you don't establish some new rules, then what's going to happen is you're going to go back to your same old cycles and your same old way of doing things. And we don't want that. And you got to set some new standards. Those standards that we had before, before we did this new rebuild, we got to set some standards. And then there comes the new, you got to set a new normal. Because sometimes when I can say for myself, after a certain time, after my father passed, I had to rebuild again a new life, because when you're leaving from a caregiver role and then you going into and that person is no longer with you, your life changes. And so a lot of times we look back and we want to go back to the way things were. There is no going back. There is, but I also want to caution you because some people are like, when I was young, I used to think this too, that I want to start all over again. I want to start fresh. But many of us have built some great things in our past and in our lives. It's not time for you to start fresh. Take what you have built and build on that. And when I mean by build on that, you've learned some lessons. Even if you did some of the things you wouldn't do again, but you've learned some valuable lessons. So we want to keep what we built, but we know that in order for us to be successful in the new normal and the things that we're moving on in our lives, we have to now do some things that will help us to be successful. Because what will happen is the same people who attacked you before or the same things that have attacked your life will try to come back and will try to take territory again. So we don't want that. So that's why we want to make sure that we restructure, establish some new standards, some new rules, and new rules of engagement so that our building is not in vain. And we're going to find out next week on that particular episode what happened when Nehemiah left to go back to where he was before, and some things started happening while he was gone. So we're going to talk about that on next week. And then I also wanted to talk to you today about family. And we all know, this one is about becoming a family. And so in this particular podcast, which is the Mama Faye Becoming Me podcast, and that one came out on Tuesdays and it come out on every Tuesday. And I talk about having a bonus family versus in-laws. And a lot of times when we have an in-law, it's very different because in-law kind of gives you this attitude like, I got to accept you because, by law, I got to accept you in my life. But I changed that term to bonus family because many a time the people that come into your life, and I was so blessed because even in marriage, I married into a great family, and I had a great mother-in-law. And I think the reason why I thought she was great because she had her own life, and she taught me about just having your own life. And plus, she was a lot of fun. She was great. She was fun, and she was funny. And so I was very blessed to marry into a great family. And I do want to encourage anybody who is getting married, or you're thinking about getting married, or you're thinking about getting serious, check out the family, because that family, whether you realize it or not, they're going to be at every barbecue. They're going to be at most of the family events, the graduations, the birthday parties. They're going to be at all of those things. So if you start off that family successfully by bringing that in as a bonus to your family, then it can work. And then also too, I was God blessed with I have two bonus families from my children. And I was God blessed with two great families there. So what it did is it expanded our family and made us a bigger family. And so I talk about some of the ways that you want to try to incorporate some things that you need to do right off the bat to try to have that particular bonus family. And I also admit that I am not talking about really extreme dysfunctional families. I did not deal with that because some of you may say, well, wasn't so fortunate. And so I did not deal with that on this particular podcast. I wanted to just set precedents for what it should look like. And then maybe at some other point, I would talk about toxic families and toxic family relationship and how to deal with that and how to navigate those type of family situations. I wanted this to be more about becoming a family. And when you're joining a family, and I one of the things that I do stress in that is that when you bring people in, it is not to overwrite their way of doing things, because whether you know it or not, every family have rules, and a lot of times the rules are unspoken, and even the people who are in the family don't always necessarily know all of the rules. But you coming into that family have to learn their rules. And so how you do that, you also want to bring along the things that you've learned, and then you have to now merge that into, just like I said about the other podcast, your new normal. And so you add the culture, you add, like, every family is not going to be the same. And when I talk about family, it doesn't mean that you're not going that it's going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges. And I had to confess up. So if you want to hear my confession, you can go and hear that podcast, because I had to confess my own um, part of being a part of the breakdown of a family. And so I do my confession as far as that. And one of the things I'll give you a tip is sometimes is the sin of omission. So if you want to know what that means, I need you to tune in to that podcast and find out what I'm really, really talking about there. So I want to thank you all for those of you who support what I'm doing. I want you to also go to MomafeyHT.com, and I want you to purchase something that helps support what I am doing. And I so appreciate that when you do. And I also want you to subscribe to what I'm doing, because that also helps to support the work that I'm doing as well. And hopefully this summer, I will be bringing back small steps, big change. And I'm going to be talking about things that you need to know. And that one is a practical podcast about practical things. So I want you to stay tuned, put your please like and subscribe. Please put on your notifications. And also, too, you can always contact me or message me on substack.com at Mama Faye Motivate Moment. I am here for you to any series that you would like for me to bring, any topic that you would like for me to talk about. I am here to talk about those topics and bring them to you live. And so you can catch me every Thursday. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be here to talk to you about those things. All right, now, as I always say, thank you for listening. That's all for today, and I will see you next time.